Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast, the show that provides a platform for self-made entrepreneurs to share their stories on how they got where they are today. If you're a budding entrepreneur or a business owner looking for further inspiration, education, or motivation, then look no further. This is the show for you. And now, let's get started with your host, Zach Duggar.
Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar, and I have a guest with me today, Robin Binkley.
Yes.
And she is an inspiring individual, someone that I've met recently and been able to read a little bit more about what she does. And I'm excited to get into this conversation today and to just find some more of that nuggets of wisdom that she has to share with us. So Robin, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Zach. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and you know, what little pieces we can share and folks can glean as they're driving or, you know, running or walking or whatever it is that they're doing, however they're capturing the information.
Absolutely. I found that there's many ways that and many times that people capture the information. I had somebody tell me that they like to listen to this podcast when they're exercising for some reason. So it motivates and inspires them to get the job done.
What I love about it is that it's not long. And so attention spans will absorb what you're talking about. So
absolutely. Well, let's get into the conversation then.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I love to talk about first is just thinking about that entrepreneurship start and foundation. And for you, where did that begin, or where did that mindset begin for you?
So I have always had the personality to be a self-starter. God just wired me as a type A individual. So I've always kind of moved quick, thought quick, took action quick. And so that's just kind of how I'm personally wired, if you will, growing up. I ran nursing homes for 24 years and realized very quickly in healthcare administration that kind of work, 24/7 responsibility, is not what I wanted to do working for someone else. The heart was there for the reasons why I got into that line of business, but it's really not sustainable. And so I thought, my husband is an avid reader and has an engineering firm here in the Houston, Texas area. And, there's got to be something different. This can't be it, So how to make that shift? And, through years of reading a lot of books and attending a lot of seminars and really just desiring to have more, but not knowing the how, if you will. And through some investments that we had made before I really retired from that line of work full time, I knew that there had to be a way. I didn't really know the word passive income. I didn't. That was not something that really 5 years ago I was thinking in terms of. I wasn't thinking in terms of replacing W-2 income with passive income. Those terms didn't mean anything to me. I just knew there had to be a better way to make money. And so what was that? And I didn't know what that was going to be. But what I knew is that I loved real estate. Both of us, my husband and I, have loved real estate. And you've heard for decades and years, make money in real estate. Well, not as a realtor. I know some realtors do incredibly well, but that's more of the investor side of it. And so that was the interest. And then how do you do that? So that took me down a whole different rabbit trail. I retired 5 years ago from healthcare administration and just went down a series of, paths to put me where I am right now.
Wow.
That's a
Okay.
long, overarching sort of answer, and we can get into all the little pieces that you
Yeah.
feel your
Yeah.
listeners would be interested in.
Absolutely. Yeah. The sounds like the mindset was there for a long time, that you've always had that drive, that to impact and to pursue and to push forward and to lead. And then 5 years ago, really got into the real estate investment side more actively to create that passive income for yourselves as well.
Definitely, but I will tell you, you talked about, or mentioned one buzzword,
Hmm.
mindset. And
Yeah.
so that is what will move the needle for anyone in any field. I don't care
Mhm.
what field you're in, but if you don't have your head in the game, it's a dangerous place. And it can create fear, it can create, all of these barriers for you and impact your self-esteem, and that mushrooms into so many things. You've got to get the mind clear. You need to know your why, your
Mm.
why for doing whatever it is that you choose to do. And my why, if you will, impacts now what I call generational wealth. But even back then, I didn't know that word, right? That's a
Mhm.
word in my bubble that I'm in. And so what I knew is that I wanted a way to have income differently. And I
Mm.
wanted to be able to show my now adult children who are 28, 26, and 20, you can do things differently. You do not have to just, you know, graduate high school, go to
Mhm.
college, get a job, boom, and that's your life. There are alternative ways of doing things and making massive impact, income, wealth. Wealth is so many things. It's not just all dollars and cents. And so I knew then that that's what I wanted. Now, in this season of life, I have grandkids
Mhm.
and I aspire and desire to create legacy in dollars and cents that go into perpetuity. And so
Yeah.
foundationally, you've got to kind of hit some things, but all of us need to know our why in whatever it is that we're doing, get
Yeah.
clear on that. And then the action comes after.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That why can help inform
Oh,
the
yeah.
action, but also the mindset to be able to maintain the mindset
Yes.
to have it. And it's
Yes,
like you
absolutely.
said, more than just dollars and cents. That's not sustainable when it's just solely that for that purpose alone. But when you have that legacy that you're looking at
Mhm.
to preserve or to create over time, then that can inform the process to get through to the dollars and cents that can create that generational wealth. Now, since we did bring up generational
Yeah.
wealth, I would love to talk about the mindset and your kind of some of your actions around that as you have gotten to know what that term means and
Mhm.
have it become part of your thought and your decision process for things that you and your husband have done intentionally with that in mind.
Mhm. Mhm. So, I guess to really kind of hit on it just in some highlights,
Mhm.
as I said, I didn't know the buzzwords, right? And but I knew what I wanted to instill. I knew what my value system was, and I knew what I wanted to impart. Now, who you impart that to, what they
Mhm.
do with that, that's a separate thing. Um, but as I retired, as we moved into more actively learning how to invest in a larger way outside of single family homes, because that is sort of where I started slash commercial real estate investing. And that sounds like two polar opposites, but it was just sort of when preparation and opportunity intersect, you have to be
Yeah.
able to understand what to do with it. So a lot
Right.
of education, a lot of reading, etc. Anyway, um, moving into looking at, well, if you take single family homes and how much money you might be making on those monthly with tenants, minus your taxes and all of this stuff, you just essentially oftentimes staying afloat or paying that individual to kind of keep your house. And that has all fluctuated with the economy, and in some of the up and coming areas, you have to kind of understand why it is you're investing in an area. That's a whole nother podcast. But
Yep.
I realized that I wanted to do more than that. Okay. And so in order to do that, I needed to do bigger projects. And to do bigger projects, I recognized that my resources would only carry me so far. And so then you have to begin looking at, well, how do people do these projects together? Well, I learned the word syndicating, didn't know what that word meant 2.5 years ago. I learned how to syndicate, and I got into some mastermind groups. And from that starting point there, I realized that my structure of our business entities had multiple LLCs and such. I always kind of lost in the sea of all of that. And so I had to get a really good CPA and an attorney to help me with some legal structure for asset management and asset mapping. What falls where? Why do you have this entity managing this? What is this about? And I began learning about and understanding some of the tax laws and what's out there and resources for the future, and learning about what is it that I'm looking to leave. What is my business really becoming? What's it about? And my business is really not about now for me, about me in the immediate, like how much money can I go spend? How many great vacations can I take? What kind of cars can I buy? And all those little doodads are great. And we should reward ourselves, because we work hard. But am I leaving this just for my kids to go figure out? And would they even know what to do? Because nobody teaches money management. Nobody teaches you a financial education. It's like the school of hard knocks, and you got to put yourself in the circles. And so we started actively doing that with our adult children. And then that grew into more generational wealth beyond them. How do we make our dollars move beyond them? And then the intent has really moved into the legacy. What kind of imprint are we leaving, or desire for people to know who we are, what we're about? And that is what has driven decisions. And so the decisions even that I made 2.5 years ago, which were attend every seminar you could possibly attend in person, literally living out of a carry-on suitcase. You come home from one event, on a Monday, gear back up, fly back out on a Thursday, go to something else. You're making all these connections, but do you tangibly have time to do something with what you're learning and the people that you're even meeting? And so I was exhausted, truly. Yep. And this year, I've really pivoted strongly. I began feeling last year at the end of the year that I just don't care for this. There has to be a different way of even doing what I'm working to achieve. And so I've slowed down and said no more than I've said yes. And I've slowed down to absorb and do more with what's in front of me, because I had started a lot of stuff. At some point, you got to finish, right?
Yes.
Or you don't really make the money, or you don't really finish the project, or you don't really bring something to closure.
Yep.
So that's sort of how all that has morphed. You just don't wake up one day and decide, oh, I want to leave money to my great-grandkids, or I want my great-grandkids to do something with the foundation that I've set up. And you don't start with having a foundation. It's about asset mapping and goals and desires, and and understanding really honestly, rot gut, honestly, where I am, really diving into a personal financial statement and understanding what's my inflow, what's my outflow, and what are my assets? Do I even have any?
Yeah.
Like, do I have real assets? And then do I have income generating assets, or do I just have little doodads? And then
Yeah.
how do I get from there to my 1, 3, 5, 10-year vision and goal? And those are things that I'm really laying out for folks and doing a lot of, one-on-ones with.
Hmm.
How to do that, how to recognize where you are and how to
Hmm.
get to where you're going,
Yeah.
And that roadmap is different for everybody because everyone has a different value system and a different
Yeah.
why.
Absolutely. And then I think a couple things that I want to highlight there is
Yeah, okay. I see.
one,
Sorry.
oh no, absolutely. You spoke about the education component and
Mhm.
going to events and seminars and living out of a carry-on. And
Yep.
I've seen pictures of people with their arms outstretched with different badges from different events hanging from both arm, just an indication of that ongoing continuing education. But at some point, you also do need to take action, and that otherwise, it isn't really getting you anywhere other than gaining more knowledge. But taking action is going to actually move the needle forward. So you do have to say no. You do have to say, I'm going to move this direction to see it through before I take on the next thing or before I say yes to the next event, and analyze what makes sense, and then move out of that analysis paralysis, which we also talked about before we got started here, to take a leap to move things forward. I just really think that that is an important aspect of what you highlighted there, because so many times we get told, attend every event, educate, read everything, network. But at some point you have to do something with that.
You do. You do. Um, I could not agree with you more. It's so I think that education comes in a lot of different forms,
Yeah.
And since COVID shifted so much of the world to so much education being available at our fingertips
Hmm.
online, and, digital, um, the digital world. You don't have to go attend every seminar in person, but I do think that it is good to get out and network, meet people.
Hmm.
It's a little different in person than everything being online. I think there's a
Yeah.
space and a time for online. And, I think that you have to even drill that down even further and get into some think tanks, mastermind groups, whatever you want to call them, private Facebook groups. Everybody calls them a lot of different things.
Yep.
But also put yourself in those spaces too, because that's really where you get super granular.
Yeah.
And if you're in the right group, you can really take some real great information and you see the true transparency. Because let's be really frank about it. It is not glamorous. It appears
Hmm.
glamorous, like everybody's doing so well, and we put on all these, wonderful faces about how we're all making money, but nobody really talks about like the deals that go bad,
Hmm.
the bad actors, the Ponzi schemes that are out there.
Yep.
And that seems to be becoming more commonplace now than what we'd all like to really talk about. Um, mastermind groups where, you're really in and you think everybody cares. And the truth is they really don't. And many times I found folks attending seminars just to show up and be seen. That's
Hmm.
important, but it's more important about the relationship. Like, what
Yep.
relationship are you really developing from that? You know?
Yeah.
So, some great learning lessons that I've learned over the last 2.5 years. And I will tell you, slowing down and saying no and reevaluating what I'm attending, what mastermind groups am I in? What am I not going to re-enlist myself in? I think that there's moments where certain groups are really helpful in your growth, and then you need to move to something else. And not all groups are designed to carry you from the caterpillar and the chrysalis to becoming the beautiful butterfly.
Yeah.
They're intended for seasons. And I think you have to have the maturity within yourself to like get past, oh, are you going to this next thing? Are you going to this
Right.
next thing? You know, I was having a conversation yesterday with one of my accountability partners, and she was asking me, are you going to XYZ? And I
Hmm.
said, no, I'm really not. She said, well, why not? And I said, because I don't really feel like that adds value to me right now where I am.
Yep.
I can access some of the amazing speakers, it's amazing lineup, a little bit differently
Hmm.
and have the time to do something with what
Yep.
they're talking about that applies to me and my business and my time of life right now.
Absolutely.
So I think just recognizing that and not feeling the peer pressure of it is like anything else that you get involved in.
Right.
You can get ramped up on the glamorous side of it, but once you're in it, you realize, oh my God, this really is not, you know, it's work.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
work. Mhm.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry
Let
to
me.
say that, but it's true.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's not always fruitful work, or if there aren't
You may not
actions.
see the fruit of your efforts for quite some
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
Stay
Yeah.
true to the process because it does work.
Yeah.
It just may not work as fast as you think it's gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yeah, rephrase what I just said. It is fruitful, but it takes time and effort and consistency over that time, and patience, diligence, and actual
Yeah.
effort in the process. It's not
Mhm.
nothing that we're talking about is a overnight process. It is definitely a lifelong process, but some things can be done and shortened up if you do get that right education, right connections with people. So let
Okay.
me ask.
Yeah, I just do wanna
Yeah.
let me throw this in before you ask me this next
Yeah.
question. You mentioned something about time, or you said something about time frames right here. You can
Yeah.
collapse time frames, most
Yeah.
definitely, by putting yourself in these circles,
Hmm.
in these groups, in these mastermind groups, attending events, because without it, you're kind of like flying solo. I
Yeah.
mean, who doesn't wanna collapse time frames and take action faster? So I just
Right.
wanted to make sure I had mentioned that.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
mhm.
Definitely. So the couple of follow-up questions. One, thinking back to when you got to start thinking about generational wealth and building generational wealth, what's one action that you would recommend somebody take to begin their own journey and taking steps to building generational wealth, or learning about what they need to do and how they could adjust their situation? So that's one question. And
Mhm.
then fast forward to today, you mentioned working with people one on one. Tell us
Mhm.
a little bit more about what you're doing with that and how you're helping them to take action or make informed action steps to follow through, rather than just talking and
Yeah,
learning and not doing anything.
right. Okay, 2 great questions, and I hope that I don't derail too much. I
That's
wrote this
perfectly
down
fine.
so that I make sure I'm like, "Okay, here we go." So with a current situation on, you know, what would I recommend someone
Mhm.
do? And understand I am not like a licensed
Mhm.
expert in this area, so let me
Yeah.
ensure that I say that. But what I personally did, which I think is super applicable to anyone, is get in touch with your why. Okay. Like, why do you want to do, or why do you want to have XYZ income? And
Yeah.
understand where you are now. Okay. And so if you have a real good grasp on where you are right now financially,
Mhm.
and you understand what your goals are, not New Year's resolutions, not, you know, I had this idea last year, but it doesn't pertain to this year.
Yep.
There's a lot of back work that has to be done within yourself. You have to understand what your goals and dreams are. And there has to be some ability for those things to be realistic and measurable.
Yep.
And then you need to have your hairy, audacious goals. Okay. I'm all about that. You have to be able to then envision them, say them, write them, do all of these application types of pieces, which also answers part of your number 2 question. How
Yep.
do I work with folks one-on-one? So I'm going to answer your your 2 questions in one space. I would really encourage someone to work on a personal financial statement. Like, I can't say that enough.
Yeah.
And have a real understanding where you are. Put yourself on a budget. You may need to be on a budget. If you've never operated on one, you need one. And 3, I would say you may need to change your CPA. I meet with our CPA on a monthly basis. We have scheduled calls. They are scheduled 12 months out in advance.
Yep.
And then we have them weekly with accounting and all this kind of stuff. And so we grew into that. But the reason for that is you want to understand where you are with your income and your investments and whatever it is that you've got now. And these are my goals and my dreams, or this is where I want to see my income in 3-5 years. What style of investments do I need to be looking for given my situation? And I don't think it's unrealistic for the average individual to at least have a quarterly conversation with your CPA. They need to be looking at a snapshot of your financial overview, at least quarterly, and that may cost you a little extra money, but we're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. You also then have to look at the overall structure. If you're in a position where you've already got all these LLCs, or if you're in a position where I'm starting a business, creating an LLC, this is going to be a pass-through, or you're moving into an S Corp and you're moving into all of these other things, where am I going? Because you need guidance. We're not all CPAs, we're not all legal counsel, and I am highly visual. So that needs to be mapped out so that you can see it, because I don't understand it if you just tell me. I need to see it. And so that is the learning curve, and those are actionable items. And I've got a couple of folks that I work with currently from a coaching standpoint, and I am developing my coaching line of business, to be very clear, but I work with individuals on tangible takeaways. Like, how does that apply? Like, how does that work for me? How do I make that work? And then we talk about 1 or 2 nuggets, and then we do a follow-up. And sometimes that's monthly, sometimes that's quarterly. Because again, you have to have time to fit all this into your real life and make it work. And so I'm all about, let's be realistic, but let's stretch ourselves, because we'll never reach our goals if we've not done that.
Yeah. Well, you definitely are. Absolutely.
Foundationally, you have to do that before you start growing this big thing.
Yes.
You've got to have your foundation.
Yeah, I love that you're creating a coaching program, because you are absolutely right. You start with the foundation, but then having that support and guidance, continuing that process is absolutely valuable to an individual. Now, I want to ask a question that I like to ask all of my guests. If you were to be handed $1 million with no strings attached to it, how would you invest that in your business or another endeavor, and why?
So, my answer may be a little different than what you've heard. In this day and age and in this given moment, with the economy, investments that may not be paying out as far as distributions currently, I think there's a lot of frenzy to get rich quick, invest in this program, figure out this, do this, do this. And I would do nothing. I would be in a pause state. I would be in a neutral state. And this is where I am right now. I am sitting in a space where I'm not investing in anything.
Mhm.
literally. Not right now, not a thing. And even if you handed me $1 million, I would tell you this very same thing. Because a lot of asset classes right now are not positioned, given the current state of the economy, to
Mhm.
pay out the way that you're looking at performas. So I would sit tight. I know that our economy is going to be shifting strongly in the next 6 to 9 months. And I would position myself financially to be ready to pull the
Yeah.
trigger. I would educate myself. So, one, you need dry powder, you need cash.
Mhm.
And that means, yeah, money in the bank. Do whatever it is you need to do with the money, or invest it in some stores of value like gold and silver. I think you need to have a little bit going on
Yeah.
in the digital currency space, but I wouldn't like go out and blow 800 grand on, two or three investments because everybody's had great success in the past. Well, you know what they
Mm.
have, but it's about distributions now, distributions going forward. So educate
Yeah.
yourself on these different asset classes. And I would say sit in neutral, get really neutral, get off the wagon of getting caught up in the frenzy.
Mhm.
And I would be neutral with it. That's what I would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I
I like
would
that
literally
answer.
do nothing with it right
Yeah.
now, except hold it
Yeah.
and educate myself in these other spaces right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom in that answer. I like that. It's very pertinent for this current time we're in,
It
and
is.
just being patient and intentional about using your assets wisely. And that includes cash and saving that cash for that time in which it will have the better performance. So,
Yes, and I've got a portfolio of real
yeah.
estate, and I have all this stuff, and I would tell you, like, not right this hot sec.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Now, if our guests want to find out more about what you're doing, and perhaps in the future in which you have that capacity for additional coaching,
Yes,
find out
yes,
more from you, what is
yes.
the best way for someone to connect with you?
So the best way is to just send an email to team, TEAM, at
Okay.
realequityip.com.
Okay.
And my chief of staff filters every single one of those and gets to me. So it
Perfect.
doesn't get lost. Someone really does read it. They read all the questions,
Yeah.
comments, and we really do get back.
Perfect. I would
Mhm.
absolutely encourage individuals that are wanting that support and guidance to reach out to Robin and find
Yeah,
out more about
definitely.
what she's doing. Team at realequityip.com.
That's
And we'll
correct.
make sure that's in the show notes as well. So,
Excellent.
Robin, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you,
time
Zach. I
today.
really appreciate it. It's been a great visit.
Absolutely. Been very enlightening. I'd love to talk more, as I know that there's so much more wisdom that you'll have to share next time we speak.
Thank you.